Thanks, Bhaskar, for the opportunity and congratulations for writing a wonderful book. So many people may not believe this, but I've read the book. And it's a wonderfully researched book. And it's amazing, actually, whatever we heard about Gautam Adani, but when you read, is something much more than that. As he rightly says that he's a man who has transformed the country, and the process still continues. He's still transforming the country. And, I think it's somebody that India can really be proud of. And people like this basically define what entrepreneurship, what risk-taking, and what an Indian can do and can achieve. Today he is the operator of largest private power company, largest port, largest airport company, largest consumer gas company, largest electric utility and largest electric transmission, largest infrastructure developer in renewables. And the pace of growth in last 20 years is almost like 40, 50 times top line and 250 times bottom line. And if you read the book, you'll understand that, it's a khali trailer hai, picture to bhi baki hai. This is just a beginning. And he's a college dropout, just like Bill Gates, who was the first billionaire who was a college dropout. And all of us are here, unnecessarily we are overeducated. But much worse is कि हम लोग बच्चों का खून पी जाते हैं उनको पढ़ाने के लिए और ओवर एजुकेट उनको just educate more. And this man is such a simple man. He's a simple, down-to-earth, vegetarian, hardworking, just like me. I'm also Jain, simple, down-to-earth, vegetarian. But I think the comparison ends there. And we can have Mr. Bhaskar begin on what makes him what he is.
That is a difficult thing in a way, because Gautam Adani is not an easy person to describe. Sorry, I should have kept this on mute.
Gautam bhai, no
Hey, Baba. Sorry, Baba. There are some things that define Gautam Adani, and like Nirmal said right in the beginning, he's a trader at heart. He began trading in diamonds, then graduated to trading in plastics, and then one day he decided that he must align his growth with national interests. And that was the time in 1990s when India was desperate for foreign exchange. And using his trader skills became the largest exporter-importer in the country. Became a 5-star export-import house. And named the field, there's no documentation on it, but market gossip is that he was the largest player in REP licenses. He was the largest player in the rupee-ruble trade and also in gold. Then he suddenly discovered another area where national interests and his capabilities could go hand in hand. And he went into coal trading. And to get into coal trading, he realized the margins are better if he had a source of coal, and he bought a mine in Indonesia. Okay. He bought a mine in Indonesia, and using that coal, he started supplying India, became the largest coal importer in India. And then again, when Indonesia put an export tax on coal, making it expensive for Indians, he wanted to de-risk himself and went to Australia. And today is the largest coal mine in the world. He's the largest investor among OECD countries in Australia. When he went to edible oils, he was a trader, and Kwok, the owner of Wilmar, was also a trader, and both joined hands. This is Gautam Bhai essentially, a trader, but a man who's savvy enough to realize that if he wants to get the best business brains, the best kind of partnership is a 50-50 venture, not 49-51. Most of his business deals are 50-50, including Wilmar, which has survived more than 30 years. And his answer is very simple. They have the technology, they have the knowledge, I have the ability to make it succeed in India. And the marriages have worked, and that is what defines Gautam Bhai.
I think it's right that most of his ventures, IOC, many other ventures are 50-50. I think one thing that you're not discussed in the book, which is that they have plans to take it to $1 trillion market cap. Now, being a man from capital market, let me first make audience understand what does that mean. So his current net worth is about $150 billion, close to that. World's richest man, Elon, I mean, passing through various problems, is 198 or 200. So he's in a stone's throw, not too far away. And Gautam Bhai's current market cap will be around $250 to $60 billion. So if he reaches $1 trillion target, not only will be the richest man, but he'll be at least twice as rich as the second richest man.
Yes.
So, I think you not discussed that part of it, but I thought that...
Yes, a very good point. I didn't go into market valuations because I avoided valuations in my book also to a very good extent. But let me mention one more thing. There's the first time an Indian has overtaken the Chinese. They were the billionaires of the world. The largest banks belong to China. If you look at the educational institutions, China's climbing faster. This is one time when an Indian has climbed the ranks and has become bigger than any Chinese businessman.
And actually, the plans for next 10 years are not for the faint-hearted. There are so many businesses, like defense alone can be as big as all other businesses that he has. Then there's MRO, which many people may not appreciate, is maintenance, repair, and overhaul of aerospace. That business by itself can be as big as all his other businesses put together, because he's got a Mudra, a very strategically located port and an airstrip where they can service all the foreign airlines with and as well as defense.
Yes.
Then he has very aggressive plans in the healthcare, education, and also, of course, cement, aluminum, copper is already, and data and digital. Gautam Bhai himself said that by 2030, his B2C customer base will be billion. Isn't it scary, Bhaskar sahab? Thoda dar lagta hai na abhi? The sheer audacity and the...
I remember when I met him first in 2005, and I went to Mundra uninvited. I was working for a German publication, and this was a logistics publication, and they told me, Bhaskar, there's something happening in Mundra, please go and check. I found a few friends who told me how to get in. I got in, made some friends with some other people, and I was surprised that by the end of the day, his senior managers came, invited me, and explained to me what the port was about. And the port is a story by itself, where he defied all conventions and built a port with the smallest of capital and growing the money within and replowing the money, and has made it the finest and the largest port in India. He's a port king. He owns 12 ports in India. He's got 2 more coming up, one in Tajpur in West Bengal and in Haldia. And he owns a port in Australia. He owns a port in Israel, and if everything goes right, he will even re-own. He almost owned it. Then there were some problems with international financiers. He'll re-own the port in Sitwe, Myanmar.
And he owns a port in Sri Lanka, which is strategically very important for India. So, no, these are certain defense requirements. So I think the line between the geopolitical, and in fact, I'll come to the defense question in a minute about the military-industrial complex, and will start blurring in the way that, you understand where I'm coming to,
You see, the trouble with most of Gautam Adani's projects have been won on open tender basis. I said most because Mundra was a negotiated deal with the state government. Defense, you can never have tenders. It has to be selective, because you can't have a pricing war in defense. You need the best technology. And if you look at the book, there's a table on collaborations in defense that Gautam Adani has. He's got the most blue-blooded players in defense. What is interesting is most of his collaborations are from Israel, acknowledged for its genius in military technology and strategy. In the drones, in military drones, he's already become an exporter from India. And the trouble with dealing with military equipment is only one. A country needs a good regulator, and India does not have a good regulator. When you don't have a good regulator, just like you described it as military industry complex, that is a danger that's always around. But knowing the way Gautam Bhai has always maneuvered his businesses through the most difficult of shoals, I have no reason to disbelieve that he will find a way to handle that too.
Now, I have a question which is not very straightforward question, but let me come back to. So in your book, you say that defense is something where you are concerned about that you can be compromised on ethics, quality, and reputation. You very quickly add that every industrialist will have to do this, but there's no justification.
True.
Two wrongs don't make one right. Somebody else is doing it.
Exactly.
So how do you justify this, for a man where the ethical and value standards are very high, and nobody knows him better than you because you have been close for a decade.
2 decades.
2 decades, yeah. So how do you, because you yourself have, I think concern is there in your book.
Well, the concern is there because I've seen military industry complexes growing anywhere in the world.
And also but defense you don't disclose. The accounting, there's an exemption that when you're doing defense, you don't have to make the disclosures. So
true. All I can say is Gautam Bhai gets into a sector when it has national significance, when the country's interests and his business interests can align themselves for mutual growth. Defense was a perfect strategy. The country has been an importer for the last 70 years, and the country said we must become a defense producer. And so he jumped in. He said, what could be more strategic than defense? And he jumped in, and at least if you go through the collaborations that he's got the best of them. I mean, I can't think of anyone better than Elbit in Israel. And he's gone into very core sectors. His advantage is he has lots of land. In Mundra alone, at the time of going public, he disclosed that he had 37,000 acres of land, making him the largest landowner possibly among all the port owners in India. When you have lots of land, when you have a port, when you have an airport, because he's got a 2.2 kilometer airstrip capable of taking the largest planes, he's right for defense, he's right for MRO, he's right for aviation. He had all the things going for him, and he's got the land. And he knows how to handle vexatious problems with government. There's a whole chapter on how vexatious the government can be.
And particularly Indian government, you're saying.
Particularly the Indian government.
So, coming back to this, as you said that he has got into businesses where national interests are aligned. But as you said rightly in the beginning, there is a trader. And if you see, I read your book, every business he gets into where there's very good margin and profit.
Oh,
and
yes.
he gets out of the businesses where there's no margin of profit also. You talked about retail, you talked about aluminum, he got out but came back, and things like this. So
he's clear. One, I'll take up any business which is small but which has the potential of making him number 1 or number 2, at worst number 3 in the country. If a business cannot scale up to his expectations of becoming number 1, 2 or 3, he jettisons it. He jettisoned the project of Wellspun for oil. He's jettisoned the retail network he had, and he sold it to Anil Ambani when he was in charge of retail. Similarly, he had a call center. He gave that away. He realized that this would not grow up. He is a scale person who thinks large scale. But he's also different in 5 different ways. And that is what I like about this man. He will never go public till his company has started generating profits. I know industrialists who take the money, then go to the drawing board and decide what to do about it. That's not a bad idea. Google did the same thing. But in India, very few people are conscious enough to make money first, then go public. 2, he retains relationships. At 50-50, many people can't even handle 75-26 joint ventures. He's handled joint ventures with 50-50. His data network, so ICOMNEX, is 50-50. Green energy, Total, 50-50.
IOC also.
IOC, 50-50. He handles relationships not just for 1 or 2 years, but for 30 years. He does not look at relationships as transactional, takes out and then throws them out. 3, he cultivates his trader friends. If a trader loses money, he will try to give him more business so that he can recover the money and pay back and square off his debts. That's why he enjoys tremendous loyalty. When traders in his office, when he was dealing with plastics, were asked to wait, he told his head office, henceforth a trader will not be asked to wait. You fix up a date, clear the dues, within 15 days, he does not have to come back again and again. He does not delay payments. These are some of the enduring qualities and some of the basic values of trust, of faith, of Zaban. He was a diamond trader and he knows, and he's a Kachi. He knows very well that a word given is a word that must be respected.
Right, so we spoke about defense and MROs being as big as his existing businesses. But he also talks about POSCO venture can be game changer.
Yes.
So, I mean, there's so many big things coming up. Sometimes it's very difficult to fathom. But maybe why don't you talk about what is how the POSCO will be the game changer?
Okay. Worldwide, steel plants succeed best when they're located near the seashore. And that was possibly one reason why the Tata said that we want to own a port, and in partnership with Larsen Toubro, they built a port in Dhamra. But the Tatas and Larsen Toubro could not make the port viable because they forgot the linkages. Ports depend on linkages. Ports depend on logistics. And so they sold the port to Adani. And Adani, with his trading instincts, knows how to generate business for each port. He also realized that to succeed, the steel plant must be located near the seashore. It must have large amounts of land. He had both of them, and he needed a very good player, and POSCO was one of the leaders in steel production in the world. He had already had some dealings with POSCO because the railway line in Australia is built by POSCO. So the MOU signed up almost 8 to 10 months ago, and they are talking about steel and they're talking about hydrogen. POSCO is already working along with Samsung to build the largest hydrogen plant in Saudi Arabia. And Adani said, why not in India? And these discussions are also going on. I expect POSCO to like this deal because it's burnt its fingers too often in India. And so I expect that deal to be a very big deal. Of course, it's a deal where he'll have to compete with the Tatas and with the Jindals. They are big players. Will he be number 3? Can he become number 1? We'll see.
Incidentally, South Korea has been lucky for Mr. Adani. He started his first big money. Maybe we can talk about it.
You see, when Gautam Bhai was a plastics trader, he did not want to do the small trades his brothers were interested in. His brothers had a packaging unit, a plastics packaging unit. He wanted to import more plastics and just sell plastics without packaging, without converting them into packaging material. But for that, he had to buy large quantities. And so he tried to find out who the source of this plastic was. And none of the traders from whom he bought this plastic were willing to tell him about the actual source of the plastics. Till one day, on one of the packages, he found a small logo, and he started research into who owned that logo. And that led him to Korea. And he found the traders who dealt with that Korean company, became friends with them, developed a relationship, learnt everything that there was, and it's a very interesting way how the relationship went along, including traveling in first-class compartments with a second-class ticket. Okay, but that was the way he grew, learned the trade, and then persuaded them to take him to Korea. And when he went to Korea for the first time, story has it that he just bent down at the airport and kissed the ground because he knew instinctively that he would make his money here. And then afterwards he picked up huge volumes, anticipating volumes that customers would purchase. Because he bought bulk, he kept them in the storehouse, then went to each businessman, what is the best deal you got? I'll match that. And he sold his plastics, much to the ire of almost every other plastics trader.
I think after you finish your book, he has acquired Airworks.
Yes.
Which is, and maybe AI sets also, I think you hinted that he might.
He has a partnership with, he has a collaboration with ISRO. For me, that collaboration is very important for 3 reasons. ISRO is a government company. It deals with national interests. A satellite in the sky has weather implications, has military implications, has telecommunication implications. He has a telecommunications interest with a small investment of just 50 crores. Compare that with the investments that the other 2 giants have made. And he went about saying that, no, these are only captive networks, I don't need to buy too much of bandwidth. But when you tie up with ISRO, don't be surprised if he puts his own satellites into the sky and takes the bandwidth from those satellites as exclusive property in partnership with ISRO. My expectation.
So, as you said that in any business he gets in, he wants to be number 1 or number 2. Maybe number 3 is a difficult one too. So, in telecom now we'll see that Jio and Bharti will have big competition? No.
Well, I don't know what his strategy would be, but if he's got into a field, he has a game plan.
Interesting. So, what is the game plan for agriculture? You know, we haven't seen much of it, but it's big game plans here.
He is incredible in agriculture. Let me give you 2-3 examples. As a trader, he started importing food grains for FCI, then oil seeds for India. And because he was importing large quantities of grain, he built the largest silos, and he won that through open tender. He and Australia Wheat Board joined hands and built these silos. They are perhaps the best silos in India today. And he stores the grain for FCI, which are top loading, bottom evacuation. So first in, first out principle is observed very clearly there, well fumigated, and the grain does not rot there. Having done that, he started creating a separate terminal for grain imports and evacuation machines so the grain could be evacuated from the ships quickly. And then he set his eyes on 2 small projects, which don't even make 1,000 crores at the moment, but they're the largest in that sector. He's the only industrialist who has an end-to-end logistics chain for an agricultural producer, and that is apples. He's gone to Himachal Pradesh. He has 6 storage units, the best in the country. He teaches farmers how to grow apples, how to pluck them, how to put them in cases, how to bring them to his warehouse, to his sorting warehouse. And there's a viewing gallery where the farmers can sit and watch the apples being sorted on the basis of color, weight, size, and firmness. And there are about 15, 20 buckets, and the farmer watches his apples being thrown out into one of the buckets, and each bucket has a price. He knows by the end of at the end of few hours what his entire harvest is worth, and by the evening he gets the money. To make sure the farmer is looked after, he offers free medical facilities and free educational facilities to the farmers of Himachal Pradesh. He is a god for farmers, apple growers in that state. Now, why would he get into just apples unless he has some other plans? And that is where it'll be interesting. One of the ventures he's gone into is agricultural drones with a US company, again 50-50. Why would he get into drones unless he wants to tie up with weather companies, agricultural insurance companies, harvest information, plucking information, Government of India studies on what the crop harvest will be like or what damage has been caused to the crops. Expect him to play a bigger role in agriculture than possibly any player in the country.
Very interesting. And what are his plans for the data and digital? Because I think acquiring data centers also in a bigger way, and the industrial cloud and everything. And
I don't know. I really don't know. I know that he's tied up with ICOMNEX, again a 50-50 venture. He set up his data farms.
That he has given, which you have quoted in your book. He's talked about that. Yeah.
Yes, he's talked about that, and he set up his database factories in Tamil Nadu. He owns 6 airports. He knows how many millions of passengers come in and go out. He has the data on each of those passengers.
Electric utilities, all
electricity utilities, gas utilities, and the ports. As a data storehouse, he has more data than most people in the country. What he does with the data, how he channelizes that in partnership with the government or without partnership with without the government's assistance is a matter to be seen. But data is big business. It is perhaps the biggest business in the world. And Adani doesn't want to be left out.
And what are his plans for healthcare? Because you said the very ambitious plans for healthcare.
Well, I don't know what his plans for the healthcare are, but I can tell you 3 things. He has more than a couple of hundred of ambulance clinics which go around the Kutch region looking after villages, because it's difficult to set up a hospital with a sparse population. He has free medical facilities for the Himachal Pradesh farmers, as I told you. When the Morbi earthquake took place, the government of India built a hospital in Kutch. And Gautam Bhai could make out that this hospital did not have the facilities that were required. He just plunked in 100 crores and said, get the best equipment for the hospital. And today it's called GAIMS, Gujarat Adani Institute of Medical Sciences. Games.
It's not Gautam Adani, it's Gujarat Adani.
Gujarat Adani. Yes,
But
you're right.
economy is same.
Yes. And the hospital is a 900-bed hospital with the best of facilities. What is interesting is he's perhaps the only hospital owner or partner who immediately declared to the government, I don't want a single medical seat in this hospital. The government can decide. It is in every sense, what do you call it, he does not interfere with the hospital management at all. It's got a medical college, it's got hospital, it's got facilities, and he wants to do more of such hospitals. If he builds a hospital just like this GIMS, I'm sure it will be a government Adani joint venture. Watch the government, watch Adani, and I'm sure that the medical facilities, the healthcare services, which he thinks will be the largest in the country, will come out very quickly.
There's another interesting anecdote that the book talks about, that he goes to, Kandla airport as a kid and gets inspired. And what he does now is that from Ahmedabad, thousands, more than 30,000 children have already been taken for a visit to the Mundra airport, which obviously is world class and very good. So that's very interesting because he's taking kids there to get inspired.
Yes.
I mean, how does that, really...
Okay, first, children, school children, is a topic that's very dear to Gautam Bhai and his wife Preeti Ben. In the foundation, wherever Gautam Bhai has a business interest, whether mining or electricity or whatever, his people go to the government and say, do you have schools that you want us to look after? We'll be glad to help you without taking any money from you. Today he runs over 6,000 schools. And what he does is, I asked Preeti Ben whether they change the teachers. She says, no. Do you pay them more? She says, no, they're paid well enough. Then what do you do? He said, we just make sure the teacher teaches and we measure outputs. And every month, we sit with the teachers and find out which teacher has made students grow better and which teachers have failed. And that by itself has improved the quality of teaching and administration in the school. Someone monitors them. And the proof of the success lies in parents coming to Adani saying, हमारा बच्चा private school में है, उसको निकाल कर हमको आपके school में डालना है. And that is why when he built the Mundra port, every school which wants to come on a trip, he arranges buses, brings them to Mundra, they have a full day excursion, and then they go back. And each one is told how a small man can grow big and how you have to think big to change the country.
So this is a closed club, no? There's no media, nothing here. No?
I hope not.
So maybe I think there's a question on everybody's mind, Bhaskar, and you'll have to be really candid to talk about it. And let me actually, because in your book you indirectly touch it, so let me get you some excerpts from the book, and then probably you can elaborate. So
This is dangerous.
No, okay. Let me say what he says in his books first, and then he can talk about it. So he says that the government, who has a desperate hurry for economic growth, tend to support select industrialists. So that, and of course, globally we know Chebel and Jubastu, what are they called in Japan?
Zaibatsu.
So they have become big industrial conglomerate, obviously with the support of the government. He also says that the government supports a few select industrial houses for 3 reasons, which is faster economic growth. 2, license can continue because government can make a lot of money with the license. And 3, obviously, there can be political favor, which can be expected from those industries which are supported. I'll leave it to you to elaborate now.
Look, I'll put it this way. When
People are
Gautam,
expecting some candid response from you.
well, I'll try. I'll try. I'll try to the best of my ability. This is a minefield. I don't want to get into the minefield. My leg is already very bad. I don't want to lose both. Okay, but Gautam Bhai wants to align with national interests. You cannot align with national interests without being friendly with politicians. Please remember that when Mundra Port was born, it was with Chimanbhai Patel, Congress. Keshubhai Patel, not a BJP person. It just happened that from 2001 to 2014, Modi was the chief minister. So his exposure to the Gujarat chief minister under Modi was longer than that with other chief ministers, and people think it's only Modi who made Gautam Adani. I don't agree with that view. He will be friendly with any minister, any chief minister, any head of state who can do business with him. I mean, how else could you explain a Gautam Adani going to Mamta Banerjee and getting clearances for his Tajpur port and his Haldia port? Or to Gaylord? He has excellent negotiation skills. So, A, you cannot do business in India without being friendly with governments. If I'm a road contractor, I need to know the road minister very well. If there's a problem, he's the one who can unentangle it. And in India, problems can be many, as one chapter talks about that. But the second thing happens is, when the industry starts growing, the politician needs him. Let's take a simple example. Whoever is in power at the center, if he can make healthcare succeed, it's a political dividend for him that translates into votes. So if the government decides to tie up with the best industrialists, most capable of building a health infrastructure, why not? Is it helping the country? Yes. Is it helping the party? Yes. Is it helping the industrialists? Yes. Is it helping the people? Yes. Will it get them votes? Yes. At the top level, big businessmen think in terms of benefit for themselves, benefit for the people, and benefits for X, Y, Z politician, so that they can get all complications on the ground level removed quickly. And India has too many complications. That's as candid as I can get.
Thank you. You know, this is not the fastest in India. This is not only fastest in the world. This is the fastest growth in the history of mankind.
Yes, I didn't think of it that way. Yes, you're right.
You know, which is, so sometimes, you know, okay, let me come to the next part of it. And the entire, okay, he's 60, 62 or whatever.
He's 60.
60. And it's a joint family that is actively involved in the business, his brothers and their nephews and everybody. How do you see, every time when the business becomes so big, and mostly if you see the developed countries also where people have, they look at businesses beyond them, you know, the succession planning, and how do you make it an institution which, you know, can outlast the founder. How do you see this, you know, in joint families? I mean, we know human beings are human beings at the end of the day. And so how do you see this business, you know, going over next, you know, 10 years, 20 years and 50 years? The way things stand today, maybe in 10 years' time, as we said, that it can probably become 5 times or 10 times as big.
I don't know. I don't know, frankly. I did approach that question, both through Gautam Bhai as well as managers, and they said, he has a plan. Nobody has told me what the plan is. You don't become a big businessman without succession planning, point one. Succession planning can mean 2 or 3 things. You carve out an empire, like Mr. Ambani is doing right now, to make sure there's no friction between the children, or else you work out some other strategies so that they stay together. What works, what does not work, I don't know. But there's one thing going for Gautam Adani. In the last 20 years, when people grow very rich, there are fights within the family. I can't think of a single fight within this family. The family's ability to keep everyone together, maybe it's a Kutchi trait. The Kutchis are most astute of traders. Look at Azim Premji. Started as a trader, and where is he now?
Premji is Gujarati, not Kutchi, but yeah.
Okay, Gujarati.
Many successful Kutchis, yeah. There are quite a few Kachis here also.
Okay.
So in fact, he's from the Banaskantha. Banaskantha is the border in Gujarat and Rajasthan. He's from this side of Banaskantha. I am from the other side of Banaskantha. We're South Rajasthan.
Pranam.
But I'm always on the wrong side. So.
Not really. Not really.
So
But
anyway, but I think maybe probably we can open for questions. Just
excellent.
Before that, what are the key takeaways when you for 2 decades of your this thing? How has it changed you as an individual or as a person? Have you started also thinking big that okay, instead of writing business book, I'll write fiction, movie, romance, everything?
No. This itself took me a lot of time and a lot of effort. I don't know whether I'll write a second book after this,
But
a third
as
book.
an individual, how have you changed?
I admired his ability to be affable, his ability to think big without acting big himself. 2 key takeaways that I picked up. And the third thing is brilliant ability of managing relationships. People can't manage a small family relationship, he's managed an entire joint family. And part of the secret of success is managing relationships. Part of it is great vision. And the last one is the ability to get things done. His ability as an implementer is brilliant. His ability as a cost controller is brilliant. He tells his managers, don't think of profit, you just manage the cost. Profits will come.
I think 2 things he talks about: cost and speed.
Absolutely. Cost and speed.
So I think all of you, I strongly recommend read the book. It's an amazing thing that he has done for India and he continues to do. And whether, as I said, some people may not like the audacity, but still the changes and the transformation and the impact that he has on India's economy, the 1.3 billion people, is something that you just can't ignore and is just incredible. And with this, maybe we'll have questions from
Just a little addition, and that's mentioned in the book. Sure. My first article on Gautam Adani was with the German publication. When I saw Mundra, and I said, this is a man who could change India. That was the title. It was a cover story.
And way back in 2007, I think.
2007, you're right.
So it's incredible vision Bhaskar also has, I think. And the only thing that if you were operating in stock market, you probably would have become.
आप गुरु हो, सिखाओ मुझे.
पर vision आपके पास है, गुरु हमें फायदा.
No, but I remember when I had gone to Dubai at that time to give a few talks on why India, Mundra especially, would change the fortunes of Jabal Ali port and how India would become a destination port. And many people thought I had imbibed something hallucinatory. And when I revisited all the things I'd written about in 2007, by 2018 I realized that he'd actually not only changed the port business, he had actually transformed the country. That's it.
He plans to acquire ports in US and EU also.
Yes, he's already bought a port in Israel. He's bought a port in Colombo, in Australia. And as I said, it's a matter of time. He'll take it.
See, Colombo is strategically very important because China acquired 2 ports. From a war and a maritime security, it's very important that at least Indian company has acquired a port because otherwise you're always at the risk.
Absolutely. Open.
Are there any questions?
Bhaskar, your research is amazing, I must tell you, really. The depth what you have gone into, it's something, and the perspectives, the insights which you threw, I think we really couldn't think. I'm sure the house really shares the same sentiments. And
I think we should give big round of applause to Mr. Bhaskar.
Yes. In your, absolutely. And
Thank you very much.
your talk was like a trailer. Once we read the book, we'll know more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm honored. It took me some time, but I'm glad I wrote the book finally.
Yeah, good evening, sir. So the fact that you know in and out of
Just mention the name, it helps.
This is Sambhav, this side.
Yes.
The fact that you know in and out about the person himself.
Not in and out, somewhat.
Okay. And the enterprise's strategy. To what extent do you see a similarity to the Reliance playbook?
Look, if you look at Reliance's growth when Dhirubhai was alive, it was as stupendous. He taught India how to think large scale.
In his book, he says this, which, with your permission, I can tell
Please,
people,
please.
because he says that Dhirubhai managed to get license after license under the industrial this thing, and also they managed to get a very lucrative oil field from ONGC.
Yes.
And actually, the pace of growth he compares, obviously, Adani has grown much, much faster. And approximately today, I think his net worth is almost twice that of Mr. the second big A. So
Yes. So in a way, both are similar. Dhirubhai also was a trader, a school dropout. Again. And
I think most of us will think Mark. And we don't have courage even to put our children on the right path.
touche. But this is where both.
दूसरे के पास जाके बोलेंगे आप भेजोगे.
So both of them have some common traits, but there are differences between both, and I've explained that in the book.
Hi, Mr. Bhaskar and Mr. Jain. Thank you for such an insightful and inspiring conversation today. I'm Roshan, by the way. In the last, especially in the last several months, there's been a lot of talk about how the group has been over-leveraged, right, in terms of the growth at the cost of what debt. And again, I mean, you've been legends in the world of finance, and Mr. Jain yourself as well, and would love to know your point of view on this.
Can I first mention? Okay, because his forte is debt. His forte is understanding financial balance sheets, etc., etc. But let me give you another side. Gautam as an exporter-importer must have created large pockets of wealth overseas as well, which his brother, who stays in Dubai, manages. No international financing is done without his brother's knowledge, help, assistance, and they work together. Most of his businesses were generating money overseas also. And even today's debt, he has de-risked his debt in such a way that about 1/3, my estimate, you'll have to check this out. If I'm wrong, it's wrong. But my estimate is that 1/3 of the debt is from Indian banks, 1/3 would be from the markets, mutual funds and what have you, and 1/3 is overseas. And all his overseas ventures, whether it's shipping or it's coal mines or it's ports, are extremely profitable. And that brings me to something else. When I was running a magazine called Investment Week in Indian Express, when Nirmal and I came to know each other, there was one point I always mentioned: it does not matter whether the money is yours or whether the money is borrowed, so long as you manage to get a rate of return that is higher than the market cost of money. If you're making more money than what the banks are making, than what the lending rate is, you're in the right business. You can always repay debt. And if you had asked this question 3 years ago, Gautam Adani was more over-leveraged, 7 times if I'm not mistaken, and now it's 3 times. Someone has got the money to pay back that extra leverage in the last 3 years. If you're making more money than the market cost of money, and if you're profitable, I would not be so worried about leverage, especially if you look at every business of Gautam Adani. He de-risks himself. He does something, call it rash, call it whatever. But if you call it, when he takes a decision, he also creates a structure where if things go wrong, what can be done to salvage that, to counter that.
I think more than finance, I think there's a very interesting thing in physics, which I just remember a quote of Archimedes. Give me a lever long enough, I can move the world around.
Yes.
So
Brilliant.
I think we can see that in action here. But on the more serious, this thing, I think has more leverages from overseas now. And maybe from the time he wrote, the Indian bank will not be even 1/3 today, will be much lower than that. And somewhere in the book he mentions that because of Ukraine war, the coal prices have gone through the roof. And he's got a huge, some $10 billion ton coal reserves in Australia, and that money basically remains outside. So probably that will probably help him to service and reduce his outside leverage. And I think he has raised equity, and his cash flow is improving very rapidly. So at this point in time, there can be worry about leverage, but I think the way he's managing it, and maybe with some bit of capital market, probably he'll raise equity also at appropriate time. So it may not be as bad as it probably people will fear from outside. But I don't have the numbers. But one thing I know that his overseas leverage is much more than Indian banks.
Yes. And his overseas leverages are usually financed by his overseas businesses,
Most
which
of it, like
are
his cement, everything is fully financed by overseas foreign banks.
very true.
When you say overseas, is there any particular country he's borrowing from?
Agnostic. Money is money.
From most of the foreign banks or whatever. So.
I have to find my way to the next question.
Hi, this is Rahil. I really enjoyed the book. I got it last week and, really enjoyed it. You have a lot of stories about, the kind of risks he's taken and like calculated risks and, some problems that he faced throughout, including the Australia problems and then early in his, in his career. But is there a time where he was, there was such a big problem or such, huge, make or break kind of moment? I don't think I read that in the book, or maybe I missed it. But I don't think I saw any like make or break moment. Like if that didn't happen or didn't work out for him, or he didn't take the right calls, we would not have a Mr. Adani today.
I would say there are two make or break situations that Gautam Adani faced. One was a Mundra port. He got the
Tata's
Mundra.
won the bid. Tata's won the bid, but then he got
No, the power plant. I'm talking about the port.
port, yeah.
Yes. When the port was taken up, he didn't have the money. And all his all his advisors, consultants brought in plans and said he had to put 6,000 crores up front. He didn't have the money. So after they went away, he just threw away all the plans. He says, this won't work for me. Called his managers. He said, I've got 100 crores. Find out what we can do in the port so that the 100 crores start generating money. He made the money, used that money for building the second module, then the third module, then the fourth module. The port was built in a record 2.5 years, but more importantly, he got the entire port built without putting up 6,000 crores up front, which would have killed him in terms of interest costs. One very interesting thing is ports need to be dredged. He wanted a dredger. Dredger Corporation said, you'll only have to wait 6 months. He said, I can't wait 6 months. So he told his managers, we'll buy the dredger. He said, it costs 500 crores. Buy it. What will you do? He says, that's your job. Now you have to find out how to earn that money on the 500 crores. And so he converted the dredging business into a business, the dredger ownership into a business, and today he owns 100 dredgers. He's the largest dredger operator, leaser in the country. I mean, he's left dredging corporation far, far, far behind. Mundra could have broken him completely. There's a second point. When he took up the Australian venture, he thought the matters would be over in 3 years. It took him 10 years. 4 changes of governance. At that time, he had also started building the Sitwe port, and the lobby which was working against him told the international financiers, stop funding because he's promoting a military regime. The port started when the military was not there. But when you've got a large vested interest group which wants to destroy you, arguments change, justifications change constantly. And the Australia story tells you how they changed. At that time, he was scared that if the Sitwe, one financier backed out of the Sitwe port. And he was so scared that if this backing out became contagion, it would have killed him financially. And so he just jettisoned the Sitwe port. That was a make or break event. Took him 10 years, and he had 3 meetings each time. Shall we shut shop and walk away? Or shall we continue? And then he said, let's continue. But that was a make and break event.
We'd love to take more questions, but I don't want Bhaskar to miss his flight.
Please,
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this very early evening for a change. Thank you to Nirmal Jain. Thank you to R.N. Bhaskar for their time. Thank you to Penguin as
I'll
always.
wait for 10 minutes in
bringing us
case
this
anyone
book.
wants to get the copy signed, then I'll make a move.
Yes, sure.
Thank you.
In case anybody wants to get their copy signed very quickly, maybe we have 5
Nirmal,
minutes.
thank you.
Thank you.
I'm coming to you to learn a few tricks.
Sir, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.